Copenhagen is a city on the up, with its mix of Scandinavian and Germanic culture and comparisons to Amsterdam. It has seen a boom in tourist numbers in recent years, with over 1.5 million visitors flocking here every year. But this is also Copenhagen's problem. They still aren't 100% ready for the amount of foreign visitors they get. Every tourist city in the world has at least one ghost walk, a place for a local guide to tell gruesome stories and spread ancient legends. But this city is the first place I've been to that doesn't. They do it in Danish for the locals. That's no use to the many tourists who come here and want to learn of the dark stories. The Danish kingdom is one of the oldest in the world, and with stories of Vikings and many other Scandinavian legends, you'd think they would have a ghost or two. But fear not, I've dug out and uncovered some of Denmark's darkest stories. The Rhode, or the Round Tower. This 17th century tower is located in the centre of Copenhagen, and if I'm honest, you should be visiting it anyway as part of your sightseeing. Building the tower started in 1635 and took 7 years to build under the orders of Christian IV of Denmark. At the time, astronomy was a big thing in Denmark, and knowledge of the stars would aid navigation across the seas and oceans. To this day, you can still see the observatory at the top of the tower, but the most striking feature is the fact that there are no spiral stairs like other towers. This meant that the king could essentially ride his horse all the way to the top. It's like a big ramp. It is also said that Tsar Peter the Great ascended to the top using a horse pulling a carriage with his wife inside it. As you can hear, noise travels in this place, and that's what a lot of staff claim to hear. Voices at night, even after the place has been locked up. But when they get to the top to see who's there, there's nobody. Entry is only about £3, and from the top you get a fantastic panoramic view of Copenhagen. My advice is that you get here quite early, when it opens at 10 AM, because it becomes very busy and difficult to get cool photos like this without people walking around, and the sound travels all the way up. Whilst not in Copenhagen itself, Dragstad Castle is regarded as Denmark's most haunted place, and you can stay here, although it'll cost you £200 or £300. The original castle was built in 1215 by the Bishop of Roskilde and has been modified several times since. The castle is said to have over 100 ghosts, but 3 are reported the most. The castle was used as a prison. James Hepburn, a disruptive Scottish noble, was often in trouble. He was forced to flee from Scotland in 1567 and headed for Scandinavia, but a storm forced his ship to dock in Norway, which was then part of the Danish Empire. He was arrested for not having the correct identification papers, and his troubled past soon caught up with him. He was wanted back home in England for the murder of his wife's ex-husband. The Earl of Bothwell was sent to Dragstad, chained to a pillar and given only enough food and water to stay alive. He died in April 1578. His ghost is still heard in the form of wailing, horses' hooves, and the sound of chains rattling. His grave is at a church near the castle. In the 1930s, some plumbers made a grim discovery. While a legend tells of a ghostly maiden called Selina Bovles walking the castle at night, searching for her forbidden lover, this discovery adds weight to the story. She was the daughter of a former owner, but she made the mistake of falling in love with a commoner who worked at the castle. When her father found out about the secret love affair, she was bricked up in one of the towers and left to die. Although this was, what many people thought, just a legend, the ghost of a wailing woman, until plumbers found the skeleton of the female bricked up inside the wall of a tower. The Grey Lady is also seen here, believed to be that of another woman who worked here as a servant and who acts as the protector of the castle. If you're like me and interested in locations with a dark past, then come here to the Courthouse in Night of. These people are sat around drinking, but they don't realise that they're on the exact spot where thousands of people were executed. Prisoners would be taken from their jail via this overhead corridor linking it to the courthouse. They'd be sentenced inside before being led down a small raised area, and executions took place here until 1758. See, on this spot, scaffolding had been constructed, and just standing here gives you a strange feeling. While in Copenhagen, I encourage you to visit the Assistens Cemetery. It's famous for being the resting place of the famous author and poet Hans Christian Andersen, the man who brought us The Ugly Duckling, The Little Mermaid, and The Emperor's New Clothes, as well as many more famous stories. He's buried here, but there's one grave that I came to see here, and that's the story of a lady who was buried alive. They say that every graveyard has its own ghost, and this one in Copenhagen is no different. It is said to be haunted by a lady called Gertrude Bodenhoff. She was born here in Copenhagen, and on her 17th birthday in 1797 she married Andreas Bodenhoff. A happy couple. They got their first house here and everything was going really well. However, just 5 months after the wedding, Andreas died of natural causes. Gertrude came to this beautiful ornate cemetery and she had a special tomb made just for Andreas. She looked after it every day. She had lovely statues made of it. But little did Gertrude know that within a few months, she would be joining him. It is said that a bruised ear led to an infection, and she was pronounced dead. Now, obviously being a widow, she inherited quite a lot of things, jewellery and money, and this was quite well known in Copenhagen. It is said that after her death, grave robbers broke into her grave to try and steal some of her possessions, mostly jewellery. And that's where the first myth came from. It is claimed that when a grave robber broke into Gertrude's grave, she was still alive. She woke up and tried to attack the grave robber. In defence, he battered her and cut off her hand so he could get to the ring that she was wearing. That behind me is Gertrude and Andreas's grave. Now you're probably thinking the story's a load of rubbish. You know, these kind of legends get passed down over the years here, and it's the same anywhere you go. But in 2000, somebody decided to do something about it. They wanted to see if the myth was true. They exhumed the body of Gertrude. Now in Denmark, quite a Christian country, people are buried in the normal religious way, on their back, hands over their chest. But when they looked at Gertrude's body, it was face down, and her hand was cut off, and all her jewellery was missing. Now simple science might explain some of this. I've heard stories about when bodies have been dead and gases can escape and they can still move. Even if a grave robber did break into a dead person's casket, they might still disturb the body in order to get what they want. But the legend lives on. Many people have claimed to have seen her ghost in this graveyard. But you're more likely to bump into these bees. There are several beehives dotted around this cemetery. But don't worry, they won't hurt you. There are many other cool places to visit in Copenhagen, such as Tivoli, one of the world's oldest theme parks, even the inspiration for Walt Disney's. But this is the final story, and it takes place in a street called Laksa Guard, which translates as Salmon Street, as this was once the area of part of a canal that ran through the city. This street became so famous because of one incident with the devil. This is Laksa Guard in Copenhagen, a street made famous by an incident that happened here in September 1826. It all started with a house just over my shoulder there. One night, a window smashed, and out came a chair, smashing onto the street below. Over the next few minutes, all kinds of household items were being flung from this window, and the residents of the house were out here on the street, terrified of what was going on inside. By now, all the neighbours were here, trying to see what was going on, thinking some sort of domestic was in occurrence. But it wasn't. Eventually, half of Copenhagen turned up, trying to catch a glimpse of what was going on. One resident even claimed to have seen red eyes when he tried to enter the building. Another claimed he heard a growl. Eventually, the police turned up and found the whole building completely empty, with all of the furniture on the floor outside. A month later, a woman was blamed who lived in the same apartment block. She was accused of bringing the occult through the use of Ouija boards, which she admitted on the night of the incident here at Laksa Guard. Whatever did happen on that strange night in Laksa Guard, put it on the map. If you've enjoyed our video, don't forget to check out some of our other content. I enjoy going travelling and finding all kinds of stories in places I've visited. Check out some of our other videos and like and subscribe to the Dead Air channel.